In 2024, there has been at least one death every 6 days in the Colombian city of Medellin, where I once lived, and at least half of those murders have been Americans. Yet, one of the number one questions I get on this channel is, why in the world would you choose Peru over Colombia? What were you thinking? So in this video, I want to talk about the top reasons why I chose Lima, Peru over Medellin, Colombia, and why you might want to do the same thing. But before I get started, I want to thank each and every person that has subscribed to this channel. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And if you have not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing to this channel. So let's talk about the top reasons why I chose Lima, Peru over Medellin, Cali, or Bogota, Colombia. So the first reason is pretty straightforward. It has to do with crime and safety. Although Lima, Peru specifically has a less developed economy than a place like Medellin, it is a safer place to live overall, especially when you are an American tourist. So during my time in Medellin, I felt much less safe doing day-to-day tasks such as taking an Uber across town, taking the bus, walking to the grocery store. And the number one reason why was, even though I lived in a upscale tourist area, I would always see homeless people during my day-to-day commute. I would see women engaging in prostitution. It was easy to find people using drugs out in the open. It was just a place where crime was more visible than Lima. So when I leave my home every day in Lima, I never ever have seen something like someone using drugs openly or a woman engaging in prostitution. Those types of things you do not see on a day-to-day basis, at least in the area that I live in. Now, this might be considered a more expensive upscale area, but keep in mind, I was also living in an expensive upscale area of Medellin. So this is one of the number one reasons why I chose to live in Lima rather than Medellin. Another reason has to do with the news reports that you see every day in Medellin. Every day in Medellin, I would turn on my news report and I would see news about a new person who has died from consuming too much scopamine. And scopamine is simply a drug that prostitutes use to subdue their victims. Basically, they give you this drug, you lose consciousness, and when you wake up the next day, all of your valuables are gone. Your checking and savings account are completely cleared out. Your cell phone is gone. Your laptops are gone. It's just something that they use in Medellin to be able to rob people of everything that they have. And the problem that they are facing now as it relates to this drug, scopamine, is that a lot of the victims, instead of passing out for 4 hours, are passing out and they're never waking up. And this has happened to so many Americans that have visited Medellin. And to me, it's not worth taking that type of risk. So that's the top reason why I chose Lima, Peru over Medellin. It has to do with crime and safety. For example, waking up in the morning and actually wanting to go outside. That wasn't something I felt in Medellin. Here in Lima, I never feel that anxiety of thinking, oh, do I want to go outside today? Will it be safe? No, I never feel that way here in Lima, but I always felt that way in Medellin. The second reason why I chose Lima, Peru over Medellin specifically has to do with the modernization of the apartments. I was pleasantly surprised when I got to Lima and I was able to tour apartments that were very modern. If you've ever visited Mexico, you know that each and every apartment, no matter how fancy it is not gonna come with drinking water, water that you can drink, potable drinking water. You're always going to have to go out and buy the large tanks or buy individual bottles of water. That's not something you have to do here in Lima, Peru, especially if you live in an apartment that is more modern. One of the things I absolutely love about my apartment is the rooftop. You can look and see that it's very new. If you're a digital nomad, it's a place where you can go and get your work done. If you have your family here in Lima, it's a place where you can go and grill. They have a small play area for children. They have a small meeting area if you want to meet there with your colleagues from your job. It's just a very comfortable space that you can enjoy each and every day of the week. And I really enjoy how modern these spaces are. I feel like I'm back in New York or LA, or even during my time in Virginia, where I lived in very modern apartments. It has kind of the same feel. So the overall modernization that has occurred here in Lima makes Americans feel a lot more safe and a lot more at home. Although my apartment in Medellin was really nice, it did not have the same level of modernization that I have found here in Lima, and it has been a pleasant surprise, and I'm enjoying my time here. So the third reason why I chose Peru over Colombia has to do with Cusco and Machu Picchu. So if you've ever had an opportunity to visit Machu Picchu in Cusco, you know that it can be a life-changing and spiritual experience to visit such a marvelous place. And Colombia really doesn't have anything similar. So if you spent time learning about the culture here in Peru, if you've spent time learning about the Incas, if you spent time in the rainforest near Cusco, you know exactly what I mean. I chose Peru because of the rich culture, the rich history, the opportunity to connect to the people of the past and to know their stories completely. So as you know, if you've been here in Peru or if you visited Peru, Peru has a more indigenous population. So when you visit places like Machu Picchu, you're not talking to people who have bought those spaces and are telling you the history of the people who once were. No, you're talking to the descendants of the people who once lived in that land. And that is an overall pleasure to be able to do so. And that's one of the top reasons why I chose Peru over Colombia. There is an authenticity that still exists here in Peru that I wanted to learn more about from the direct descendants of the people who once were. So if you're interested in history, if you're interested in culture, if you're interested in learning more about the history of a lot of these Latin American countries, I would definitely recommend Peru or a tour in Peru over visiting, for example, during my time in Medellin, I think I visited the Pablo Escobar Museum, and that nothing against that. That was also a wonderful experience, but it doesn't have or hold the same meaning as spending a day or a week in Machu Picchu. Another reason why I chose Peru over Colombia is because Colombia can be a difficult place to stay long term. And I'm speaking in terms of the visa process. And if you overstay your time in Colombia, there's always a hefty fine associated with overstaying your time in Colombia. So that is a huge contrast to how they handle things here in Lima. So when you arrive in Lima, you receive 90 days, a 90-day tourist visa if you are an American. And that 90-day tourist visa can be renewed as long as you go and visit another country like Argentina, like Bolivia, and then simply come back to Peru. So I know a woman, for example, who has lived in Peru for 6 years on a tourist visa because she always leaves, for example, every 6 months and visits a place like Bolivia or Argentina and simply comes back. And when you come back, they will give you a new 90-day tourist visa. As I mentioned in my Why I Moved to Peru video, I recommend that you apply for residency, and that will make your time easier. But even if you're a person who feels like you don't want to go through all the drama of applying for residency, being a tourist long term is easier here in Peru than Colombia. Now, do they charge you a fine if you overstay your tourist visa? Yes, but it's much cheaper than what you will pay in Colombia, which is another reason why I chose Peru over Colombia. So another reason why I chose Peru over Colombia has to do with what I mentioned at the onset of this video, and that is the dangerous party scene that exists in Colombia. Now, a person like me, I thought when I go to Colombia, the party scene, the drugs, all of those things won't affect me because I'm not a nightlife person. But believe you me, it will affect you if you are staying in Colombia over a large period of time. Not only the noise, but the overall culture and the type of people that Medellin specifically is attracting will affect you. Because when you are in Colombia and you're in Medellin specifically, they're going to look at you and assume you are there to party just like they are. So Medellin overall is attracting a more risky crowd, a crowd of people that don't mind engaging in things that are illegal in the United States, such as prostitution. A lot of different drugs are used and present there in Medellin. It's going to affect your overall safety and comfort if you're a person like me who's not traveling to engage in any of those things. So if you're a person like me and you're there to learn about the culture, you're there to learn about the people, you're there to learn about the history, you're there to engage in respect for the people that you're there to visit, then you might not enjoy your time in Medellin as much as you would in Lima, Peru. Because what I feel like is happening in Medellin is they're creating an overall culture of sexpats, people who are traveling just to pay prostitutes. Those are not the types of things that I travel for, which is the reason why I chose Lima, Peru over a place like Medellin, because the overall feeling here is so far separated from somebody who's coming to a place to do drugs, to pay prostitutes, to party all night long. Although there is a party scene here, yes, there is. It's not as intense as what you will find in Medellin, Colombia, and it's another reason why I chose Lima, Peru over Colombia. So the final reason that I want to mention about why I chose Lima, Peru over Medellin, Colombia is because Colombia creates what I think is a fantasy world. What do I mean by that? Well, when I would walk outside of my apartment in Medellin, I was more likely to find people who had had all types of surgeries done on their face, on their skin, things like Botox, things like breast implants, things like butt implants, butt injections. It's almost like you're stepping into a fantasy world. And if you're like me and you like more natural things, if you like natural beauty, even as it relates to nature and people, then you will feel more comfortable in a place like Lima, Peru. I'm not saying that the people of Lima don't have plastic surgery. What I'm saying is it's less prevalent. You're less likely to find people here who have had every type of surgery imaginable. But during my time in Medellin and also in Bogota in certain areas, there were so many people that had had every type of plastic surgery that you can imagine, and it makes you feel less comfortable when you're walking around. It makes you feel like you don't fit in if you haven't had all of those surgeries. If you don't have the veneers in your mouth, the designer clothes, if you don't have the breast implants, you feel a little bit out of place in a place like Medellin. So that's something to consider, whether you're a man or you're a woman. If you haven't had all of those surgical procedures, you might stand out in a place like Medellin where surgical procedures are very common. During my time here in Lima, I have seen very few people who have visible plastic surgery, and that makes me feel more comfortable because I've never had any plastic surgery. So I feel like I can fit in more, and the natural look of just being who you are, made by God, is more acceptable here in Lima, Peru. So that is the final reason why I chose Lima, Peru over a place like Medellin. I felt like Medellin is selling and creating a fantasy for so many people, and that's fine if that's your personality. I like a more natural experience. And if you're like me and you just want to be yourself, then Lima, Peru is a better option for you. So that's all I have for you today. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Bye-bye.